The sky above planet Glacieri 7 was dark and full of snow. Thick clouds covered the stars. Cold wind screamed across the empty white land. There was no sound of life, only silence. And then a fireball. A small escape pod fell from the sky, burning through the clouds. It hit the ground hard with a loud crash, sliding across the ice and snow before finally stopping. The metal was bent, the door half open. Smoke came out slowly. Inside, Commander Eli Hart opened his eyes. His head was bleeding. Everything hurt. Alarms were still ringing inside the pod. Red lights flashed across the small cabin. He coughed and tried to sit up. His voice was weak. Eli Hart, survivor. Escape Pod 3. Mission Delta 9. Crash landed on Glacieri 7. Mayday. No one answered. He looked around. The communication screen was broken. The power was low. Outside the small window, he saw only snow and darkness. Eli grabbed the emergency pack. It had food for 3 days, a sleeping bag, a flare, gun, and a small heater. Not much. Not enough. He closed the door to keep the cold out. But the wind still screamed through small cracks. The temperature was dropping fast. Eli took a deep breath and started recording a log. Day 1. Crashed. Alone. Weather extreme. No sign of other escape pods. Sending out beacon. If anyone hears this, I'm still alive. He turned on the beacon. A small green light blinked. It was weak, but it worked. Someone might hear it. Maybe. Hours passed. The wind grew louder. Eli wrapped himself in the sleeping bag, sitting near the heater. His eyes closed, but sleep didn't come easy. In the middle of the night, he heard something, a soft crunch, like footsteps, in snow. His eyes opened wide. He turned off the heater to listen better. Silence. Then, another crunch. Closer. Eli reached for the flare gun. He stayed still. His heart was beating fast. Was it an animal? Another survivor? Or something else? He waited. Nothing came. After some time, he convinced himself it was just snow falling from the pod roof. In the morning, Eli stepped outside to check the damage. The cold hit him like a wall. The wind almost pushed him back. But what he saw made him freeze. Footprints. They were not his, and they were not human. 3 toes, long, deep marks in the snow. They went around the pod and stopped near the window. Someone, or something, had been watching him. Eli looked around but saw no one. The land was empty. He went back inside quickly and locked the door. Later, he checked the pod's cameras. Most were broken, but just one was working. It showed black and white night vision. He rewound the footage. Nothing for hours. Just snow. Then, at 3:14 a.m., something appeared at the edge of the camera. A figure. Low to the ground. Crawling. Slowly moving toward the pod. Not a human. Not an animal. It had long arms. Thin body. Big head. And it moved like it was hurt. Or very, very tired. The figure stopped near the window. Looked inside. Stayed still for a long time. Then, it crawled, away into the dark. Eli stared at the screen. He didn't move. His hand gripped the flare gun tighter. What the hell was that? He whispered. He didn't sleep that night. He sat by the door, waiting, listening, watching. The beacon blinked in the corner. Green. Still working. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing. The planet Glacieri 7 was supposed to be empty. But now Eli knew the truth. He was not alone. The visitor. The second night on Glacieri 7 was colder than the first. Commander Eli Hart sat inside the broken escape pod, wrapped in the sleeping bag, one hand holding the flare gun, the other gripping a piece of metal pipe. His eyes were heavy, but he didn't sleep. Not after what he saw on the camera last night. The memory of that crawling figure. Thin, strange, silent. haunted his mind. He had no idea what it was or why it had come so close to him. And the worst part? It looked intelligent. Outside, the wind howled like something was screaming. Snow beat against the metal walls of the pod. It was like the planet itself was warning him, "You are not welcome here." At 2:57 a.m., he heard something again, a sound he could not explain. Not wind, not snow, a soft scraping. Near the door. Eli sat up, heart pounding. The flare gun was loaded and ready. Then, a whisper, a voice. Very low, broken. Almost like someone learning to speak. Man. Eli's blood turned cold. Was he imagining it? Was it the wind or... He moved slowly toward the door and peered through the small crack. In the metal, at first he saw nothing, just white snow under a black sky, then movement to shape, a figure standing just a few meters away. It was not crawling this time, it was standing, thin, tall, body shaking, arms wrapped around itself as if freezing. And then it spoke again, cold, so cold. "Let me in." Eli stepped back. "Who are you?" he shouted through the door. Silence. The figure took one weak step forward. Not enemy. Please, let me in." Cold. Its voice was strange. Broken English, but clear enough to understand. The thing was asking, to come inside? Eli hesitated. His mind raced. This could be a trick, a trap. He was trained for this kind of thing. No contact with unknown life. Stay isolated. Protect the mission. But this wasn't a mission anymore. This was survival, and the creature outside sounded more like a dying traveler than a hunter. He made a choice. Eli slowly opened the door just enough to see the figure better. Snow blew in, making the air inside even colder. The figure dropped to its knees. It was definitely alien. Skin pale blue, almost translucent. Eyes large and black. It wore something like armor, but broken, torn, and its hands were shaking badly. It looked up at Eli. Not hurt you. I promise." Eli stared at it, then back at the snowstorm behind it. If he left it out there, it would die. Maybe that was the smart thing to do. But Eli was human. He opened the door wider. "Get in." Slow. The alien crawled inside, collapsing just a few steps in. Eli closed the door and locked it again. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Eli pointed the flare gun at the alien, not lowering it. The alien didn't move. Just breathed slowly, hands still shaking. Eli broke the silence. "What are you?" The alien looked at him. Its voice was soft. "My name. Karak. I am Scout. Left behind. Many cycles ago." "Left behind?" Karak nodded. "My people came. Long time. But this world, not safe. They left. I did not make it back." Eli stared at him. 1,000 questions filled his mind, but before he could ask, Karak shivered hard and said something unexpected. "Please, sleeping bag. Just one night. We both will die alone." Eli narrowed his eyes. This creature, this alien, was asking to share the sleeping bag. The silence was heavy. Then Karak added quietly, "Your heat. Safe. Mine. Fading." Eli didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply sat there staring at the creature who was now curled up near the heater, trying to stay alive. After a long time, Eli made a decision. "You stay on your side. Try anything. You're dead." Karak nodded. "Deal." They shared the small space. Barely enough for two. Minutes passed. Then hours. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, two beings from different worlds sat in silence. Both survivors. Both freezing. Both wondering if they would see another sunrise. At 5 a.m., just before the sun rose over the icy hills, Eli heard Karak whisper in the darkness. They come at night. You saw me. But they saw you too. Eli turned to him slowly. Who are they? Karak's eyes were wide, full of fear. Not from sky, not from space. They live under the ice. A chill ran down Eli's spine. Karak added, They heard your beacon. They always come when it calls. Suddenly, the green light on the beacon blinked faster. Someone or something was getting closer. Stranger in the snow. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was even more terrifying. Outside the escape pod, the snow was still. Not peaceful, just waiting. Like the planet itself was holding its breath. Inside, Eli Hart sat across from the alien called Karak. The heat from the small emergency heater warmed the air but did nothing for the cold in Eli's bones. He had just survived his second night on Glacieri 7, but he didn't feel lucky. Karak was curled up in the corner, weak and barely conscious. His breathing was shallow and his skin had turned a pale gray. Even in sleep, his eyes twitched like he was dreaming of something horrible. Eli stared at him. This alien had begged for warmth, begged to share a human sleeping bag, begged like a man. Why? Why would a creature like that choose to come here alone? The words Karak spoke last night echoed in Eli's mind. They come at night. They heard your beacon. Eli turned to the small blinking light. The beacon was still transmitting. A weak signal. A call for help or bait. He reached over and switched it off. For now he didn't want anything hearing it. Not until he understood what they were. Eli spent the morning outside, checking for signs of danger. Karak was too weak to move, so Eli went alone. Armed with the flare gun and a metal pipe, he walked in a wide circle around the pod. What he found made him stop cold. Tracks. Deep ones. Not like Karak's. Not like his. These were heavier. Longer. Clawed. And they didn't come from anywhere. They came up from beneath the snow, like something had climbed out of the ground, then disappeared into the white. When Eli returned, Karak was awake. His voice was dry and cracked. You turned off the beacon, he said. Yeah, Eli replied, because something's watching us, something your people ran from. Karak didn't argue. Instead, he closed his eyes for a moment, then said quietly, You're right. Eli sat across from him. You're going to tell me everything, now. Karak nodded slowly. My people came here. Centuries ago. Explorers, soldiers, scientists. We found the planet empty. Dead. Perfect for building. But it wasn't empty, was it? Eli asked. Karak's eyes darkened. They were sleeping. Deep under the ice. Not alive. Not dead. Waiting. What are they? Karak's voice was barely a whisper. Void stalkers. They don't eat flesh. They feed on heat, energy, life. Eli felt a chill worse than any wind. And now they're awake? Karak nodded. Your beacon, your escape pod, the crash, it woke them. They sat in silence for a long time after that. The only sound was the soft ticking of the heater and the distant howling wind. Eli finally broke the silence. Can we fight them? Karak didn't answer at first. Then he looked up. Only one way. Together. That night Eli couldn't sleep. Neither could Karak. The temperature dropped again. They shared the sleeping bag for warmth, back to back. Strange how quickly that had become normal. At 2:13 a.m. the pod shook slightly. Eli opened his eyes. He listened. Nothing. A minute passed, then another. Then, tap. Soft, on the window. Tap. 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 Eli sat up. So did Karak. Don't move, Karak whispered. Eli slowly looked toward the window. A shape was standing just outside. Tall. Still. Eli reached for the camera screen and powered it on. The night vision feed showed the creature. Clearly his blood ran cold. It had no face, no eyes, just a dark, smooth head. Long limbs, black skin that shimmered like wet stone, and it was staring directly at the camera. Eli's hand trembled. "It's one of them, isn't it?" he whispered. Karak didn't answer. He just nodded. Then the creature did something that made Eli freeze, in fear. It raised one long finger and pointed at the pod door. Eli killed the feed. Total darkness returned. "We have to go," he said quickly. Karak struggled to stand. "They hunt by heat, by fear, by movement. Then how do we hide?" Karak looked at the heater. "We turn it off. We'll freeze. Not before they lose interest." Eli stared at him, then made the choice. He shut off the heater. The warmth died instantly. The cold returned like a knife to the chest. They waited. Minutes passed. Then, the door handle moved, just slightly. Eli pointed the flare gun. Karak held his breath, but the door didn't open. Instead, a soft scraping sound, like nails dragging along metal. Then silence. The creature was gone. The rest of the night was torture. No heat. No sleep. Only the sound of their breathing and the ice wind. By sunrise, Eli's hands were numb. Karak was barely conscious again, but they were still alive. When the sun rose over the frozen horizon, Eli stepped outside again and froze. In front of the pod, words had been carved into the snow. Not human letters, but symbols. 3 sharp lines. Then a circle, then a spiral. Eli turned to Karak. "What does that mean?" Karak looked at the markings and whispered, "They know we're still inside." They come at night. The third night was not just cold. It was deadly. Commander Eli Hart had faced storms, hunger, pain, and loneliness. But this night felt different. Something in the air had changed. Too quiet. Too still. The kind of silence that comes before something terrible. The escape pod creaked under the weight of snow building on top. Eli sat inside, staring at the strange marks the creature had left in the snow that morning. 3 sharp lines. A circle. A spiral. Karak, the alien survivor, sat near the corner, still weak but recovering slowly. His wounds had closed, but he looked pale. His eyes never stopped scanning the corners of the pod as if he could hear things Eli couldn't. Eli finally spoke. "What do the symbols mean?" Karak didn't look away from the door. "Warning." "To us?" Karak shook his head. "To them. To the other void stalkers." Eli's chest tightened. "You mean they marked us?" Karak nodded. "We're not just prey anymore. We're targets." Eli walked outside briefly during daylight, searching for anything useful. He found one, broken power cell in a sharp metal panel from the wreck. It wasn't much. Not a weapon, but maybe something to use as a shield. The footprints had returned. Deep ones. They circled the pod like wolves marking a kill zone. But this time, they didn't vanish. They led toward a large frozen hill nearby. Cracks in the ice glowed faintly, purple there like something deep inside was breathing. Eli returned quickly and sealed the pod door tight. As night approached, the temperature dropped hard. The heater stayed off. It had to. It gave away their position like a flare in the dark. Eli and Karak sat close, wrapped in the same sleeping bag, barely speaking. Finally, Eli broke the silence. "Why do they hunt? You said they feed on energy, but why wait? Why watch?" Karak turned slowly. "They don't just want to feed. They want fear. They want us to know they're coming." Eli clenched his jaw. "So they play with their food." Karak nodded. "And they're almost ready." At 12:44 a.m., the pod lights flickered. Just once. Then again. Eli looked at the power gauge. Still full. Karak's eyes widened. They're near. They're drawing power. Outside, the wind stopped completely as if the planet had lost its breath, and then... Skrrr. Something scraped across the pod's outer shell. Not once. Not twice. But in circles. Eli grabbed the flare gun. Karak picked up the metal pipe. "Stay quiet," Karak whispered. "Don't breathe loud." A loud thud shook the roof. Eli aimed upward. Above us, he whispered. Then another thud, and another. Then silence. A faint humming began, deep, low, like a vibration in their bones. Karak covered his ears. Don't listen to it, close your mind. What is it? Eli asked. They're trying to break your thoughts, make you panic. Eli gritted his teeth and focused. But then the pod lights turned red. Emergency power mode. That's not possible, Eli said. I turned off the heater. Everything, Karak whispered. They're feeding now. Suddenly, the emergency screen lit up. Incoming signal. Eli stared in shock. Someone was calling. He touched the screen. A voice crackled through. Human. Familiar. Escape. Pod 3, this is Rescue Unit Delta. We received your beacon signal. Landing coordinates locked. Arriving in 48 hours. Eli felt relief. Someone was coming. But Karak's face turned white. You turned the beacon off, and didn't you? Eli froze. Yes. I did. Karak looked at the screen. That signal wasn't human. Eli turned to the door. Then the scraping returned, followed by a knock. Tap, 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 Eli shouted. Who's there? Shouted. No answer. He moved to the window and peeked through. He nearly dropped the flare gun. Outside stood himself. An exact copy, same uniform, same face, same wounds. And it smiled. Eli backed away. Karak stood up, shaking. Don't speak to it, it's not real. The double outside opened its mouth. Its jaw unhinged, stretching wider than humanly possible. Eli fired the flare gun at the window. Boom! A flash of red light burst outside, blinding the creature. It screamed, a sharp echoing screech like metal tearing apart. Karak fell to his knees, covering his ears. The creature vanished into the snow, but something else began moving. Underneath the pod. Crack. Crack. The floor split slightly. Ice breaking. Beneath. Karak screamed. They're coming through the ground. Eli grabbed the metal shield and pulled Karak away from the center. Suddenly, the floor caved in. A long, dark hand reached up. Eli slammed the shield down on it. Bones cracked. The hand retreated. Another hand grabbed Karak's leg. Eli kicked it off and dragged Karak toward the upper hatch. We climb, he shouted. They opened the hatch and climbed onto the icy roof. The wind returned suddenly, violent and cold. The sky above was full of strange lights. Purple lightning danced across the clouds. In the snow below, 5 void stalkers stood in a circle. They stared upward. Eli raised the flare gun again. Only one shot left. He looked at Karak. Karak whispered, Don't waste it. They're not afraid of pain. They're afraid of light. Eli looked around. And then he remembered. The broken power cell. If he overloaded it, it could flash like a sun. Cover me, he said. With what? Karak asked, gripping the pipe. Eli laughed bitterly. Your charm. Eli jumped back into the pod, grabbed the cell, and connected it to the backup line. Sparks flew. He held it above his head and shouted, Come on, you bastards! Come and get it! The void stalkers began to climb the pod walls. Karak screamed, from above. Now! Eli smashed the cell. Flash. A blinding light exploded in every direction. The creatures screamed, falling back into the snow. Eli and Karak lay flat on the roof, breathing hard. Alive. For now. The real enemy, the light from the power cell, faded slowly. Snowflakes floated down again like the attack had never happened, but it had, and they had survived. Eli Hart sat on the roof of the pod, holding his bleeding hand. His heart was still racing. Next to him, Karak sat in silence, staring at the spot where the void stalkers had vanished into the snow. Below them, the escape pod was cracked. The floor had collapsed in the center. Sparks flickered from damaged panels. It was no longer safe. Neither was staying here. Eli finally spoke, his voice dry and rough. You said they were afraid of light. Karak nodded slowly. They feed in the dark. Light confuses them, blinds them, slows them. but it doesn't kill them. Then what does? Karak didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the clouds above. Purple flashes still danced across the sky. We only have tonight, he said. After that, they come in greater numbers. What happens after tonight? Eli asked. Karak looked at him. They stop hunting. They start harvesting. By morning, they had made a plan. They packed what little they had, flare gun, empty, broken tools, one more emergency cell, and a small ration of food. The air was colder now. Not natural cold. Something deeper. It pressed against their skin like invisible hands. Eli and Karak headed toward the frozen ridge, where the stalkers' footprints had vanished the night before. As they walked, Karak explained. My people found this planet thousands of years ago. They believed it was empty. They built underground cities, machines, labs. And then the stalkers came? Karak shook his head. No, we woke them. Eli glanced at him. How? By digging too deep. At the base of the ridge, they found a strange structure hidden under layers of ice. Part of it was exposed. A black metal door built into the mountain, glowing faintly with old power. This is where it began, Karak said. The original outpost, the place we found them. Eli touched the door. Does it still work? Karak placed his hand on a scanner. A soft click sounded. The door opened slowly with a low rumble, revealing darkness inside. They entered. The hallway was cold and silent, walls covered in frost. Alien symbols glowed dimly along the sides, pulsing like a heartbeat. Eli held a broken pipe like a weapon. Karak walked beside him with a slow limp. Suddenly the lights flickered. A voice came from a nearby console. Commander Eli Hart. Welcome. Eli stopped. The voice was human. Too human. He looked at Karak. That's not possible. Karak walked to the console. It lit up, showing a 3D hologram of a woman in a white suit. Dr. Elena Voss, Delta 9 Mission Director. Ellie's breath caught. She had died in the crash. This is a pre-recorded message, the hologram said. If you're hearing this, you survived the crash. Good. You're stronger than we expected. Eli's blood turned cold. What the hell is this? He whispered. The hologram continued. We knew about the Void Stalkers. That's why we sent you. Karak looked at Eli, confused. You knew? Eli shook his head. No. This wasn't in the briefing. We were told this planet was uninhabited. The hologram smiled. A lie, of course. You were part of a test, Commander. Humanity must evolve, and sometimes evolution needs fear. Eli stepped back, horrified. You used us. All of us. Not used, the voice replied. Chosen. Those who survive become something new. Eli's fists clenched. We lost. Our entire crew. We lost everything. For a test? Karak looked sick. You brought them here? On purpose? Eli stared at the floor. I didn't know. Karak's voice turned cold. But your people did. The pod screen blinked again. Rescue. Signal received. Ship landing in 24 hours. Karak stepped away from the console. They're coming to collect the result, not to rescue you. Eli felt like the ground beneath him had cracked again. So what now? He asked. Karak looked at him, eyes dark. Now we burn this place, or we become part of their next experiment. They searched the old outpost and found something useful. A core battery, highly unstable, designed to power an entire base. It could explode if overloaded. This is it, Eli said. We blow this place, bury them. Karak nodded. And the stalkers with it. They set the overload timer for sunset. As they prepared to leave, Karak placed something small in Eli's hand. A small crystal. What is this? Karak smiled faintly. My memory. If I don't make it, take this to your people. Let them see who we were. Eli placed it in his jacket. You're going to make it. Karak didn't answer. Outside, the snow had turned black. The sky was a deep red now, bleeding across the horizon. Eli and Karak climbed to the top of the ridge. From there, they could see the pod far below, and the ground moving around it. A swarm. Dozens of void stalkers. They were no longer hiding. They were marching. They know, Karak said. They feel the core's energy. Eli checked the timer. Minutes left, and the rescue ship was on the way. Eli looked at Karak. We have two choices. Run to the ship or finish this. Karak looked at the sky, then the army of shadows below. Your species created this horror, but tonight, maybe we stop it. Eli smiled. Let's give them a surprise. Last night, before rescue, the sun never truly set on Glacieri 7. Instead, the sky turned blood red, as if the planet itself knew something terrible was coming. Eli Hart stood on the ridge, wind howling around him, watching the black shapes move below like shadows crawling across the snow. Dozens of them, maybe more. Void stalkers. The ancient predators of this world. Creatures born from the dark, drawn to fear, heat, and the spark of life itself. Beside him, Karak stood silently, wrapped in a damaged thermal cloak. His body still weak, but his spirit stronger than ever. The two survivors didn't speak for a long time. They had already said everything that needed saying. They knew this was the last night. The old alien outpost behind them pulsed softly. Inside, the core battery ticked toward detonation. Minutes. If they stayed too close, the explosion would take them too. If they left too early, the void stalkers would escape. And if the rescue ship arrived at the wrong time, the wrong people would live. Eli checked his gear. One flare gun, one broken pipe, a pocket knife, and a pack of emergency flares they found in the outpost, meant for signals, but bright enough to blind the stalkers. Karak carried a pulse stick, made from melted, scrap and energy wire. Not elegant, but deadly when charged. They were not warriors. But tonight, they would fight like ones. The creatures began surrounding the outpost. They didn't charge. They waited. They watched. Eli knew they were thinking. Not animals. Not monsters. Hunters. They had learned from the last attack, and this time they were ready. Karak broke the silence. You should go, Eli. Eli didn't answer. I mean it, Karak said. You're their target, not me. They want your energy, your signal. And that's exactly why I can't leave, Eli replied. Karak looked at him. I was left behind once. Don't make me watch someone else run. Eli turned, eyes hard. I'm not running, and neither are you. They set the traps quickly. Heat packs, power wires, flares, anything that could distract or delay the stalkers. Makeshift mines designed to burst with light and static. Karak placed the last charge near the base of the ridge. If they pass this line, he said, they reach the core. Eli looked at the horizon. A tiny blinking light appeared in the sky. Growing, moving, fast. The rescue ship, it was coming. Estimated landing, 17 minutes. Too soon. Suddenly, the snow around them cracked. Eli grabbed his flare gun. Get ready. First stalker emerged from beneath the ice, black and tall, its limbs like knives, its face a smooth, eyeless mask. Eli fired the flare. Boom. Light burst across the field. The stalker screamed and fell back. But 3 more appeared behind it. Then, 10. They were done waiting. They were attacking now. The first wave hit the traps. Light mines exploded. Electric coils snapped. Some stalkers fell. Others kept coming. Karak screamed as he swung the pulse stick, slicing through a stalker's arm. It shrieked and melted into the snow. Eli stabbed with. The pipe ducked, rolled, fired another flare. But there were too many. They were closing in. Care minutes. The outpost lights glowed red, warning pulses. The core was near overload. Karak shouted, "We have to fall back." They ran to the ridge, breath ragged, backs burning from cold and effort. Eli turned back. One of the stalkers was climbing the side wall. Too close. He grabbed the last flare, lit it, and jumped toward the creature, slamming the flare into its chest. The beast exploded in light, vanishing into ash. Eli collapsed on the snow. Karak pulled him back to his feet. "They're afraid of you," he said. "Good," Eli gasped. "Then they'll follow." 6 minutes. The ship was landing, just over the next hill. Eli and Karak could see its bright lights in the distance. Too clean, too polished, too late. Karak looked at Eli. "We split. I lead them to the core. You get on that ship." Eli shook his head. "Not leaving you." "Then we both die," Karak said. "And they win." Eli looked down, then handed Karak the last emergency flare. "You light this, just before it explodes." Karak took it with a nod. "See you on the other side." Eli ran toward the rescue site. The snow blurred around him. Alarms blared in his headset. "Commander Hart, you are clear for extraction. Please respond." He didn't answer. Not yet. Behind him, the light from the outpost turned white, then gold, then everything. Shook. A massive explosion lit up the entire sky. The ridge blew upward, ice raining down from the heavens. Fire swallowed the creatures, and Karak was gone. Eli fell to his knees. "Commander Hart." "Respond," the voice repeated. Eli stood up slowly and pressed the comm. "This is Commander Hart. Survivors? 1. Retrieving now." As the ship landed, its engines blew away the snow, revealing the burned remains of the battlefield. Eli climbed aboard, silent. The crew looked at him strangely. Too calm, too controlled. One officer stepped forward. "Did you encounter any alien life?" Eli stared at him. "No. Nothing but the cold." He walked past them, clutching a small crystal in his hand. Karak's memory. Is he one of us? The rescue ship lifted off from Glacieri 7 at 0400 hours, rising above the broken battlefield of ice, fire, and ash. The crew inside said nothing. They watched Commander Eli Hart closely, whispering behind masks, checking his vitals twice an hour. But they didn't ask questions. Not about the alien life. Not about the destroyed outpost. Not about the missing second survivor. Eli sat alone in the back, staring at the stars outside the window. He didn't feel like a hero. He didn't feel like a survivor. He felt changed. They docked with the orbital station Arc 12 hours later. A clean white hallway greeted him. Cameras followed every step. Medical drones hovered above. Armed guards stood outside the debriefing room. He was no longer just a rescue case. He was a mystery. The debriefing began. 3 officers sat behind a glass panel. One wore the blue uniform of command. Another wore science white. The last one didn't speak at all, just watched. The lead officer leaned forward. "Commander Hart, we received your distress beacon. We know about the crash. What we don't know is why your vitals show increased energy readings." Eli didn't flinch. "Exposure to alien atmosphere," he said. "You also have new neural patterns," the officer added. "Memory expansion, high resistance to temperature, physical repair at the cellular level." Eli looked at his hands. They didn't tremble. They didn't scar. They had healed too fast. "You brought something back with you," the officer said. Eli reached into his jacket. He placed the small crystal on the table. Karak's memory. The science. Officer picked it up with gloves and examined it carefully. "This is incredible," she whispered. "It holds millions of neural strands, a full mind, maybe even a soul." "His name was Karak," Eli said. "He was more human than any of us." The room went quiet. They kept Eli in quarantine for 2 more days. No visitors, no contact, just questions, blood tests, scans, and dreams. In those dreams, Eli saw the Void Stalkers, but now they stood still, frozen in place, whispering in a language he somehow understood, not words. "Ideas. We remember you. You survived us." You carry light now. On the third day, the silent man finally spoke to him. He entered the room alone, wearing no badge, just dark eyes and a quiet voice. We want to know what Karak gave you. Eli didn't answer. The man stepped closer. Did he change your DNA? Eli looked up. Maybe, but that's not the part that matters. Then what does? Eli stood slowly, walking to the window. He gave me his story, his pain, his people's last breath, and a choice. What choice? Eli turned. To evolve, or repeat. The council gathered the next day. Eli stood in the center of a large chamber. Officials, scientists, soldiers, all watching. A vote was to be made. What to do with him? Was he still human? Was he now something else? The head of council, an older woman with silver hair, looked at him with soft eyes. Commander Hart, do you believe you're still one of us? Eli thought for a long time, then said softly, I survived because of him. I carry him inside me now. Maybe I'm not the same, but maybe that's what being human means. We grow, we change, we remember. And the alien threat? They weren't the threat, Eli replied. We were. A silence followed. Then the council began to vote. Outside the chamber, a young tech assistant watched the screens. One camera showed Eli walking down the hallway after the vote. He wasn't in chains, wasn't in isolation. He had been cleared, trusted. But then the assistant noticed something strange in the footage. As Eli passed under the lights, his shadow split for a moment, just a flicker, like something walked beside him. But only for a second. Weeks later, Eli sat in a quiet room, alone. He held the crystal in his hand and whispered, You're still with me, aren't you? No voice answered, but deep inside his mind, he felt warmth, not from the heater, not from the sun, but from trust. That night, he uploaded the full memory of Karak to the station archives, but locked the file with a passphrase. Let me into the sleeping bag, human. On Glyceri 7, deep beneath the ice, something stirred, not a creature, not a weapon, a spark, a voice, alien, but familiar, and it whispered, he carried light. He shared it. We are not alone anymore.